Welcome back to another episode of the podcast. Today we're going to be speaking about the changing premise of fitness around being a parent. Now, me, Deck and Dave ain't got a fucking clue, so we're just going to ask the questions. So, obviously, when you're focusing on yourself or just you and your partner, there's a lot more of a different priority spectrum when it comes to having kids and stuff. So I want to know from your experiences, like, what have you learned as being a parent, knowing about fitness or health, and still what challenges that you still face during that time period? So, like Tommy and you were talking about before, and you said that like, there's a bit of a change, wasn't it?
Huge change. Huge change. I mean, I don't want to delve into the difficulties of bringing a child into the world, but it changed everything. I think, I'm not sure how you two felt as well.
Changed nothing.
Yeah. He says with sleep deprivation behind his eyes. I think, a big topic, sleep. Sleep's the first thing that gets hit really hard.
Yep.
And we all know that sleep is vital when we are,
so
first
underrated.
of all, just functioning.
Yeah.
Just function on a day-to-day basis. You don't realise how lucky you chaps are just getting a nice solid 7-8 hours kiff.
Oh, God.
But I think from it,
He's getting emotional about it.
recovery, see, off the back of sleep, appetite, especially if we're talking relating it to dieting, appetite is huge. We all know we have poor sleep, maybe off the back of a couple of drinks, Declan. We have a greater appetite the next day. It's the same principle when it comes to children and looking after babies. You're up every couple of hours and your sleep is shot. So for me, sleep is a hard hitter. I'm not sure how you're coping at the moment, him. Any...
Oh, yeah, I guess I'm the youngest adopter of this, right? My baby's only three weeks old. So I think, it really gets to you when at night, you do that change and, they're screaming, you change them. They shit the pants again. You change them.
We're talking about the baby, or
Yeah.
They
And what's your
piss.
baby doing? Why are you doing that?
They piss, you change them again. And, when it comes to, like, the fourth time, you're like, man, please, just finish it off. I think that's the hardest thing, right? But obviously, I think it's difficult because you just can't communicate with the baby, right? She's going to cry, and that's the only way that they can communicate with you. And it's difficult to really understand what they actually want. And I think for me, that's definitely the hardest part. Usually, it's either food or they've wet themselves or something like that. Sometimes you're just scratching your head at like 3 o'clock in the morning trying to think, what am I going to do now? And then tomorrow I need to smash legs because, I still want to get huge legs, right? And, that we're talking about progression, right? That becomes a lot more difficult, to do. And I think it's important to, when you get into those periods to give yourself a bit of grace. And not expect too much within those sessions.
I think, especially in this country, we get paternity leave, so that's 2 weeks. And again, I'm probably preaching to the wrong crowd here, but a lot of people say sleep when the baby sleeps. Yeah, try and do that. It's difficult. It's near enough impossible because you got so much other things to do. But when you come to like wanting to go to the gym, you can't function. So maybe you take that little bit of a grace period and just take over from a nutritional perspective, because again, sleep affects your appetite. Don't overeat. Be conscious and make good decisions around nutrition, because it's very easy. You have this bundle of joy, you probably refer to in the first few days, that just means that you're not having to spend time on prepping food, not having to spend time on getting things sorted, ready for the gym, understanding what's going on during the day. It's just total carnage, absolute chaos. That's probably the best way to describe it. It's absolute carnage in the first few days, couple of weeks, probably months if the baby doesn't take to you very well. But I think just being quite graceful and understanding the circumstances that you're in, and then working around it, and it's creating a new routine, isn't it? That's we talk about on the first call with all clients. How do you go from this routine here where you are putting weight on, or to a point where you need to pull the trigger, you need to start losing weight, to this is your new routine? Well, you've just gone from being a couple to now being a trio, how do you get that new routine in place? And I think establishing that new routine as quick as possible will certainly help you either diet or maintain weight as well, because that bots are fairly popular nowadays.
Yeah.
How do you navigate around that? So like, if you're accustomed to like training consistently, and now you're waking up and you're thinking, you know, I've just got 4 hours of broken sleep, I don't have the same energy levels to give what I want to give in the gym. So is it best for me to not go at all? Or is it best for me to go, but taking into consideration I'm going off less sleep, so I can't expect it to be a PB session, but showing up and doing something is better than just completely missing out altogether?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I mean,
Second one.
you highlighted it there, showing up. You're still making the efforts. You're still in that routine of going. Pre-workout's always a nice little helpful, but it's not going to be a PB session. You're not going to be looking for progress. You may be trying to hit a similar weight as to what you were previously, but you're still going up. You're still moving some weights. You're still ticking over. And I think that's the people where you struggle. If that routine is completely all over the place, that's the quickest thing that you need to get back to. It's getting to the gym, trying to find the time. Again, difficult, but showing up is the biggest thing.
I think one thing you need to understand with that as well is you know, if you go off the premise that you're not going to go because, you know, you feel a bit tired, when the hell are you going to go? Because you're going to be tired for a very long time.
18 years
That's-
of university.
Yeah.
You're going to be tired for a long time, so you're going to have to suck it up a little bit, you know. Obviously, there is moments when maybe you are genuinely like so tired, and you're going to have to know where that lies for your own continuum. But it's like when people say they're ill. Are you really ill? You know, are you dying ill? Or are you like...
Did you die?
I've got this little bit of a tick on my nose, but it's like, you know, you've got to know where your limits lie, right? And, you know, sometimes you just have to... And this is why we call it the non-negotiables, right? Because these are non-negotiable things that you just have to do. It's like you wake up, you brush your teeth. That is a non-negotiable, right? Unless you really want to have sneaky breath. But, you know, for me, I set out... My non-negotiable is that I'm going to train, you know, 3 times or 4 times a week. And, you know, if I go above and beyond that, that's great. But at the very least, I'm going to make sure that, you know, I'm hitting the gym and I'm going there. No matter how I feel, how tired I am, I need to make sure that I am doing that and ticking that box. Otherwise, you know, especially when it comes to kids, I think you just... That excuse, once you let it be, and that's the reason for why you're not doing it, it's going to continue, right? Because nothing else is going to change.
It's just going to get busier, and there's just going to be new challenges, and even if it's literally for 5 minutes, and this is what I tell clients sometimes that don't have kids, and I'm just like, tell yourself you're going to go for 5 minutes, and chances are, like, if you have the time, you're going to be there for longer. But sometimes as parents, you may only have 5 minutes, and you may only be able to do something in your house. You might not even be able to get to the gym. You might have to do squats with the baby, you know, like, but do something. Just show up, and there's a lot of power in something is better than nothing.
I think, like, for me, obviously, the reason why I'm training, like, I want to obviously build more muscle and take things to the more extreme. But if we're looking at Gen Pop and our clients, they're not even trying to get to that upper echelon. Like, the degree that I need to go to is going to be a lot more severe than, you know, someone that's just trying to lose, you know, a little bit of fat. Right? When you're just trying to lose a little bit, the degree that you need to push yourself to is going to be significantly less. You just turning up, that's going to be really, really good for you to lose body fat, right? Maybe for me, if I just turn up, I may not necessarily get that, you know, 1% extra in terms of muscle mass, right? But a lot of people, they're not quite there to that extreme yet. So even if they just turn up, you know, that's going to be 90% of their results.
And you use, you know, this new bundle of joy as your motivation to, like, I want to be around as long as possible for this bundle of joy. I want to be able to, you know, keep up. I want to be able to play with this baby. I want to, you know, be at this baby's wedding. I want, you know, whatever it is. Like, you know, that needs to be your motivation now. And there's been so much research that shows especially the dad's behavior in terms of fitness really affects the kid, like, a lot. I mean, obviously the mom too, but for whatever reason, like, how dad shows up is really, really critical in how, you know, that kid is ultimately going to do in terms of, you know, their own fitness journey later on in life.
Yeah, absolutely. So if we're going to look at it being a hard, difficult time, and we talk about having a little bit of grace, But let's flip it a bit to the nutrition side of things, and let's talk about like how much grace are we talking? Like how what strategies did either you do or on reflection you should have done to be able to make sure that grace period is not 5 kilos, 10 kilos, you know, a grace period of not doing anything. So like, what did you learn going through that time period with the less sleep, the grace around training? But what did you do with the nutrition, or what would you wish you would have done to make it easier?
I think batch cooking is like massively underrated.
Yeah.
That for me, that's one of the things I immediately just started doing. I haven't done that for a long time. When I used to work, I used to cook my food, and I say used to work like I don't work anymore. But I used to work in the city, and I had to travel, and I wouldn't be working from home as much. I would have to pack my food and bring it with me. But now, obviously, I have the pleasure of working at home. Then I cook things more on the go. But now with a kid, I can't do that anymore. Like
Right.
it's, things happen. Baby poos. You go do your job, right?
I think baby poos quite a lot.
Yeah, and we love
More
a
often than not.
good, we love a good poo.
The
story.
apple doesn't fall far from the tree.
Love a good poo story. And yeah, you need to save time, and whether you have kids or not, I think batch cooking is phenomenal for that, right? It just takes away that like thought process of, I need to cook this. And if you're going to cook anyway, man, cook more than one meal. Don't
Yeah.
waste your time on cooking this one meal. It's like, oh, shit, I'm still hungry afterwards, or in a few hours time I'm going to have to eat. Like, solve that issue, cook it all in one shot. And you get something like an Instapot, air fryer. We're talking about the air fryer, Tandoori air fryer. Get something like that that's going to help you to batch cook, right? So that, it just makes your job a lot easier, right? And buy things, if you, I think it's an Asian thing to say, I'm going to cook my own rice, right? I don't want to buy no packet rice. But, man, if you need to save time, maybe have some of them spare for emergency, things like that. That's going
Or
to really
like a
help.
salad kit, or like, just marinate a bunch of stuff. Even if you're not going to cook it ahead of time, just like set yourself up for, just efficiency and effectiveness in terms of your meals. Like, it doesn't have to be an elaborate thing. Most of my meals these days, 5-10 minutes tops to create, even on the fly, if I'm not batch cooking. But yeah, I think that's a big one.
I think, I'll be completely honest with you, and probably relate to a lot of people. If you are super unorganised or just do not think about the impact of having a child and what it does to your life, and batch cooking wasn't an option, because batch cooking's great. Probably prior to the birth is even better if you got things like nice and frozen, ready to go. But if you don't have the time to batch cook, let's say you're after that grace period of being on paternity leave, you're back to work, you're working 2 jobs as I was, you have a family to support, you have night feeds to do, you have lack of sleep. Let's face it, it's all very, very easy to go and get a takeaway. So I think discussing the takeaway option is, because it's not just the nutrition side. I think we'll come about the activity in a second, because you're in the house, you don't want to go out, you don't want to expose this child to the elements just yet, especially in the UK when it's -3 outside. So lack of activity is its own subject. From a nutritional side, getting a takeaway is very, very easy. You're sat there, you're with the missus, you're sleep deprived, baby's screaming, or he's just pooed quite a lot, or he or she is asleep. You're too tired to cook anything. It's easy to get a takeaway. Okay, so what options do you have in terms of the takeaway? For me, when I reflect back, I would say, instead of getting maybe 2-3 carb portions or a starter, because again, comes back to lack of sleep, you're dead hungry. The 2 carb portions and maybe some sort of curry or sweet chili beef or something like that. It was too much. It was excessive.
Christmas wish list. Yeah.
So portion control. I think if you are going down a takeaway route, because it is very simple, and there will be days where it's just let's buy something. None of us are going to cook. Let's buy something. Exercising, good portion control will save those extra few kilos coming on. Because maintenance, we fluctuate. We're happy to fluctuate. In the lifestyle phase, we know things happen, events, but adding that, going past that maintenance period and potentially gaining, is coming back to the portion control.
Do you think that when you're having those pressures, like with the sleep, the stress, all those situations, if you had better understanding or practice with the portion sizes, or you had more of a decision-based mechanism where you knew what to do in each of the scenarios, then it makes it much easier despite the lack of sleep. So if you knew what a good portion size was and you knew what a good option on the menu was, do you think that would make it easier to be able to make those decisions even when you're sleep deprived?
Absolutely, absolutely. If you have no previous experience of either dieting or understanding foods and the calories within that, then you're pissing in the wind, so to speak. We have the SWAPS documents. We have 55 grams of rice. Despite whether you're looking, or people are naturally looking at that portion on a plate and going, okay, well, that's 200 calories. It's roughly around the same time. If you're getting a takeaway and you're having a tray of rice and you pour that whole tray on, I can guarantee you that's about 300-400 calories of, 300-400 grams of rice. So portion control, coming back to having that knowledge, that teaching, I think is critical.
How do you control your portion size when, like, let's say you're doing the takeaway? Like, what's kind of your go-to? Would you get the takeaway, weigh the food, or do you have like a specific way that you manage the amount that you're having?
Quarter carbohydrate. So yeah, again, a packet of rice comes, or a carton of rice. It's probably a 4 portion. It's very easy to just split it in half and go, yeah, I'll have that. But being strict and saying, okay, quarter plate, carbohydrate, the rice, the roti, chapati, whatever it might be. That is in the and then you've got the protein source. More often than not, it's probably half the plate. It shouldn't be. It should be about quarter, and the rest some sort of veggie, curried veggies. I do like a good salad.
One plate rule.
Yeah. One plate rule.
So then we take that example there, but then we go to Sirius, your example. Obviously, when I was obviously coaching you during that time period as well. Obviously, there's sometimes in families there is a high degree involvement of grandparents, or there is an ability to do so, and people will be looking at the batch cooking and being like, "Don't worry, like my bar's gonna do it, or my grandparents are gonna bring round food." Did you have any experience of, obviously, when you took the little one around, or when Mumsy was there, or mum-in-law? How did that change the interaction with food as well?
Yeah, I think I don't know. I kind of came up with a framework that worked for me. Like I still tried to weigh what they were making for us. So like I tried to do, for me, what worked was like 150 grams of rice, 150 grams of protein, and 150 grams of vegetables is what I just went with. And like I was still weighing myself every day at that time, and I was just like, okay, this seems to be working out. And I would have titrated it up or down if it wasn't working. But yeah, then I was still able to eat what was being made for me, but I had a little bit of element of control by being able to weigh that. But I think I just as easily could have tried to be less accurate with that by doing like a 1 plate rule. So it's definitely still possible to do, and I think that 1 plate rule really makes it very manageable to make it work for you.
And then what results would you be looking at getting out of that as well?
Well, yeah, I guess it depends on what phase you were in, right? I think at that point in time, I was still trying to lose weight. So I think that worked for me then. But obviously, if I was trying to maintain or gain weight, it would have been a little bit different.
Looser,
Right.
And maybe do what Tom's doing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Carton of rice.
1 plate of rice rule.
Did you have anything like because being Chinese, we have like my wife has to do some slightly different. They have what's called confinement. So it's like they have to eat, or she has to drink this chicken and ginger soup kind of thing, which I make for her, and it's supposed to increase your blood flow because they lose a lot of blood, etc. Is there any kind of traditional stuff that they have in the Indian like community that they do after birth for females specifically?
Yeah, my wife would drink something that her mom would make for her, like that. I'm gonna have to like look into exactly what the ingredients were, but there was like almonds and milk, and it was basically for like breast milk production, and other like kind of like spice herb based concoctions. No idea. No idea. Yeah.
So what? Yeah, I guess that for me, that's something that I was thinking about. Like that's the difficulty, right? If you're, I guess that you probably shouldn't be looking at losing body fat when you've just given birth as a
Right.
female. But I think how manage your total calories if there's some traditional things that maybe you kind of have to do because of family and tradition, and how do you kind of manage that? Like that was a
That's
big
good
thing.
question.
That I think.
If I'm looking from an outside and looking in terms of like the concept of that, I think when it's like the first initial phase afterwards, I probably wouldn't be looking at fat loss initially anyway.
Yeah.
Even when you look at from the research, you're looking at a mild, moderate deficit being like the top tier for females during that time period, not to reduce the breast milk or the volume or the viscosity. So you're almost wanting to just go like, the way I would look at it is go, if they're going to have like an unknown amount of food that's extra, you'd probably do your diet style food intake and then use them as your extra to top up to maintenance. So you do your 300 cal breakfast or whichever format you wanted to in your batch cooking days or whatever. So your normal food sources, your protein, veggies and whatnot, and then the extra 300-400 calories that might come from some walnut whip or whatever it is like that, or whatnot, that'll give you that extra calories that'll raise you back up to maintenance anyway. So it's not just like eat what you want plus the cultural dynamics. It's like eat the structure the best way you can in the midst of everything, plus the extras then tops you up.
Always manipulate my wife's food, so when because she has to, so she has to drink this chicken and ginger soup, right? So I'm like, okay, this recipe says like X amount of chicken. I'm like, I'm gonna throw some more chicken breast in there. It's a little bit leaner, but there's still gonna be like there's more protein in there, so that's like gives her that hit of protein for her to intake. So like she subconsciously is eating better without really realizing. So I hope if you're watching, yeah, brownie points.
Yeah. I actually had clients who had given birth but wanted to lose weight but was breastfeeding at the time.
Yeah.
And that's quite a difficult balance because again it comes down to milk produce. You need to find that balance between still producing enough milk to satisfy the child and obviously from her mental state as well, knowing that she is feeding it but also hitting the calorie deficit and understanding that weight will come off a little bit slower because you don't want to drop the calories too low.
I think you actually do need to have a bit more calories when you're breastfeeding. Like you shouldn't
naturally
be
burns
in a
more
deficit,
calories as well when you are breastfeeding too.
Because
High fat.
Yeah.
You need just high fat, isn't it?
So yeah, that's the tricky part. So I think it's understanding kind of what position that you're in, and obviously as a female, your stresses are going to be a lot different. Like we can talk all day about being a dad, right? But the male, as much as involvement as we want to have, the stress is never going to be the same as a female. Like my wife, she'll stay up, and even if I'm doing the nights, right, she's going to stay up and watch me do it. So the difference between that that the females have, for sure, I think their stress levels, their anxiety, their everything that we can say and talk about tiredness, they're going to experience to another level. So I have a lot of respect for mums. The degree that they're going to go through is going to be completely different from us as well.
I think it's that case of like, what's the rush? What's that rush? And I think if you've had a dieting history before you had pregnant that wasn't particularly the most conducive in terms of like aggressive diet, fast 30-day this before I go to Mykonos, or I'm going to Wales next weekend, I need to drop off and do a shake diet, then of course your mindset is always going to be of that. It doesn't matter if you've got a kid or 7 kids. If your dieting mindset means that every time you're in a clear space to do so, or you think it's clear, it's always fast and it's always quick, and I have the same gratification process. It is almost like, I guess, I don't know if it's a maturing process, but it's like, this is a priority right now. And this other thing that normally used to be super immediate, super short term, I want to lose fat right now because I feel unhappy, it's almost like you have to go, I'm going to be unhappy for a little bit longer so that I can look after this bundle of joy or sadness, whichever one it is. For me and Deck, it'd be sadness so far. So it would just come on a back burner a little bit, and some people will struggle with that mechanism, right? The whole aggressive, they go in hard and that's what the way that they like it, the focus, the motivation. But sometimes that education and actually the growing up of process of maturing and going, this thing over here is really important to me, this baby thing, and this milk production is most important. So I have to put myself a little bit on the back burner and my goals and my aggressiveness of fat loss to just take a little bit of slower approach. I'm still going to get there, what's the rush in doing that less time?
Right. You could start putting the pieces together, like, start, choosing the right foods at least, even if we're not going to be in a deficit necessarily. Start, getting those steps in and, starting to implement some exercise and, building up. And, for my wife, like after she stopped breastfeeding, I mean, she felt like a new person. Like, I mean, it's literally like giving blood every day. That's how she described it. Like, you're just so drained from that. So, I think once breastfeeding, and that's a very personal decision when that stops. But that's when, now you at least have the templates in place and it's like, okay, now I can bring my calories down and, I'm used to eating these foods, but I'm going to be, bringing that down a bit. I can go up on my steps a little bit because I'm, not spending as much time pumping or doing this. So, I think you can kind of put some training wheels on.
It just doesn't feel as aggressive by that point as well. Like if you're slowly kind of building up those good habits, like you said, a bit more moving, like some better choices in food, then by the time you are in a better position, you have built that routine around the little one, then you've already got some good momentum, some good habits in place to then be in a much better position to start dieting, as opposed to kind of having this sort of stop-start motion in place. And I think it's just like getting them into a position as well where they're celebrating kind of like the small wins along the way. Because I think unless they are going in and seeing the weight come off the scales, again, it's an automatic assumption that they're not succeeding and that they're failing. But actually now they're in a position where, again, they're starting to build that new routine in place. They're starting to make those better choices, manage the portion control, move more, even if it is, like say, 5-10 minute workout. Like all of these things will add up cumulatively and will lead to far superior results in the long term once they're in a better position to actually start dieting again.
Yeah, I think a lot of people like they leave things way too late. Like people, we talk about people want to diet when they're breastfeeding, and it's like timing is so important. Like the time for you to do it isn't then in that moment when. And you feel like you're missing out, or you feel like, I have to sacrifice this for this. But the time for you to do it was before you got pregnant, right? So if you're not pregnant now, you're thinking about getting pregnant, sign up to Autonomy. Because no, but seriously, the time to do it is prior to that. And my wife swears by it, but she never really trained. And when I think slightly before she was pregnant in March, we started training, and she was coming to the gym with me more regularly. And her pregnancy was so smooth. Like she didn't have, obviously my baby was a little bit smaller, but she didn't have any back pain. She didn't have any, any real symptoms or side effects. When she gave birth, it was, very smooth. It was, quick. And the journey and the process around it was, I think the experience was so much better. And she thinks a lot of it is down to the fact that she was exercising, she was training. And it was just coming from she never really exercised much in her life, and getting into more of a healthier habits, healthier behaviors. I think it's never gonna be a bad thing when it comes to you later giving birth. Right?
There's been so many examples of people coming on to Autonomy and being in a not so great situation to be having a little one, and all of a sudden they drop a bunch of weight and now they get pregnant.
Yes.
No, we've had it, I don't know, twice this year.
Yep,
already?
2 of my clients already, yeah.
Yeah, two this year. Even I had 3 the year before, and some in which were trying like IVF and stuff like that, and then all of a sudden they did that plus the training plus the weight loss. Call it Jesus.
Boom.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Fertility.
Autonomy is
Yeah.
a fertility program.
Yeah.
But I think
Autonomy.
Yeah.
Autonomy.
Yeah.
I love it.
I think there is a really case in point to be like, what's the rush now if you're in that situation? But if you're also now in that situation where you're thinking about that process, creating the armory, as we spoke about before, the capacity to have more and be better, be stronger, be in that great spot. You don't want to be unconditioned, unfit, and then add 20 kilos onto you or 15 kilos onto you to make it harder.
I think that's really where it comes down to, right? That's where you said, well, what's the rush? It's because of that.
Yeah.
You've already gained that prior to being pregnant, and then afterwards it's like, oh, now I really
Now
feel
I
it.
need to.
And it becomes a necessity, and it's like, well, you've left it a little bit late, or it's never too late, but now is probably not the best time to be focusing on you, and you're going to have to wait that little bit longer.
Cool. So let's talk a little bit about the right time then, because Dave's been a bit quiet during this one. So so if we're talking, let's switch it up a little bit. So we're talking about January now, not with parents and not with having little ones, but like January. Let's go and have a little bit of a think about what are the top tips if someone is starting in January, watching this video or thinking about starting in January. What's your 3 biggest things that you would do to cement getting in the best place by the time March or April comes?
I think making a plan. So this time of year is busy, and trying to map, like if you have a hard start date that's later down the road, then just plan it in and make time for it. Obviously, like the guys talked about before, now is the best time to start, and it doesn't necessarily need to be 100%. If you get 50% of what you plan on doing in January done over the next few weeks, that just makes that transition way easier. So yeah, I think planning would be number 1, and I guess goal setting. So kind of knowing why or what it is you want to achieve, and then once you have that, you can figure out the how and the why, and just kind of put systems in place to help you be successful once you're fully ready to commit.
Yeah. And how would you go about creating or understanding or establishing your why? Is there any useful frameworks that you've got or anything that you think about when you either look at your why or your client's whys? How do you get out of them? It's often a hard thing, isn't it?
It is, yeah. But it just takes a little bit of self-reflection and introspective thinking on, we often know what we want to do, but not why. So I want to lose weight, but why do you want to lose weight? Is that for just cosmetically you want to improve how you look? Is it because you want to improve your health? Is it because you want to be able to be more active? And kind of figuring out, what the underlying motivation is can help you stick to a plan better.
Yeah. I think also looking at like what the cost of not doing it also is. It's like this is the perfect thing that I'd like to do. Here's the why I'd like to do it. But most people look at the enthusiastic part of that, the motivation part. It's like, what would be the cost if I didn't take action? What's the cost if I didn't put a plan in place? What's the cost of goal setting and not doing it properly? And then therefore you're looking at both angles, both the negative costs of not taking action and doing the things that you're supposed to do, and then also the positives that come from it as well. So like, what would you say for January starters? Like, what is the pierre de la resistance of getting great results in the next 6 months?
I mean, I think you kind of nailed it there, Dave. I mean, I think not having a plan and not being really clear on your why, I think, are on top of my list. I think, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what else I would really add to that, to be honest.
I think, I've got to think about why some people don't get started. I guess go from that. Like, I always think, what stops me from doing something that, I really want to do, and it's going to come down to the barriers, and maybe if I see this thing as I've got I'm going to have to do all of this whole list of things, and it becomes really overwhelming because you feel like, whoa, there's just so much. But sometimes you just have to start off with this one trigger. What's like one simple thing that you can do today, immediately, take action, that's going to move you forward, move that needle forward a little bit. And that might just be as simple as, today I'm going to sign up to the gym, or maybe reignite your membership that you haven't used to. Or maybe I'll check in today. But what's that one thing that you can do that's going to reignite that? And tomorrow, have a list of things like, okay, today I'm just going to focus on one thing. And this week it might just be, I'm going to focus on hitting my step count. Yeah. And really making sure I can do that. Once you've nailed that, I'm going to focus on the next thing. and compound that. Like we said, there is no rush. That you don't have to do it all immediately today. And I think that's the thing that really what stops a lot of people from doing it, is because they feel like, I need to do all of these things in one shot and it has to be perfect and I need to be immediately the best thing ever.
Right.
But that is the reason why you start coaching, or you start in the first place, is because you're nowhere near that.
Yeah.
Like, how do you expect that? Today I signed up, so tomorrow I am going to be perfect.
Yeah, I
That's
think
just not going to happen.
action is the key word. You have to take some small action, towards your goal. Yeah.
I think if a client starts in January, they have already pulled the trigger. They've already got the motivation there. We've got the target set in place. That's our job. That's our role. My biggest advice would be to every single client, whether it's a January start or any other starter, is use me, use us. You are part of Autonomy to essentially get advice, get guidance. If you're struggling to get your steps, or you're struggling to tick the boxes, because everything will be very cognitive in the beginning. It will be very, very fresh. You're going from especially in January, you're going from the Christmas break, routine being completely everywhere. You don't even know what day it is between Christmas and New Year, to, right, now I need to start. Where do I start? So yes, we've got the boxes that you need to tick on each day, but yes, you're gradually ticking them over. But if you're struggling, reach out. Why are you struggling? Okay, do we need to tweak things? Are you hungry in a particular time of the day? Are you snacking a particular time of the day? Do we need to adjust the things? Use me is the biggest advice, I would say.
Do you ever heard that overwhelm is just a lot of things to do without near enough priorities? So if you don't have the priorities from either us or from the structure that you've got, you can't start with the first thing, you can't start with the second thing, and you can't ask questions about that first, second or third thing, because you haven't got it in a ranking of importance. Everything is just same layer. The amount of water that you drink, the amount of food that you eat, and the amount of steps that you do is on this baseline level of importance the same way. Whereas we all know, it's like, let's get a routine in place, let's get nutrition, steps, training, water. They all fall across the categories. So if you have that overwhelm because you don't have enough priorities, you won't be able to and do one thing. You won't be able to ask the right questions to get the right answers.
Yeah.
So
It's
break
just-
it down. That.
It's just like that imperfect action. Like, everyone always assumes they have to hit a gold standard of something before they start. Like, they have to be going to the gym 3 times per week for an hour, or there's no point. They have to be hitting 10,000 steps per day, or if you hit anything under that, you're not gonna elicit fat loss. You have to stop drinking alcohol, or you have to stop having takeaways, because if you don't, then you won't get results. But it's like, even if you just reduce the takeaways down to 1, even if you take your steps from 2,000 to 3,000, like, even if you started by doing 1 20-minute home workout this week, you're 1 step in the right direction. And like you said, it's like that compound effect and that accumulation across the next week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and the next 30 days. Then you'll be in a position when, what you're actually executing is going to be, closer towards that perfection. But I think it's just that, like I said, the overwhelm of trying to be and get everything nailed from the word go. And if you're consistently building yourself up to get ready to go all in, you just keep prolonging that start date, and then that's why you never get started in the first place. It's just it's just a lot of high expectations.
Yeah. I need to train 3 times a week before I sign up. It's like, yeah, but you haven't done that yourself. What makes you think that you're going to change that? That's why you need to sign up, or that's why you need to, you need help.
Yeah.
It's because you can't figure out how to do that thing. We all know that we need to eat, less and do more, but how do we do that? I mean, that's the whole point of it. Right?
Just let me lose my first 10 kilos, and then I'll reach out to you.
Yeah, we've already lost it.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's like you've been spending 10 years to lose 10 kilos, mate. Like, why are you going to wait any longer to do it? And like, there's one thing I think we can all happily say is, like, not one of our clients has ever been like, I wish I'd pushed the start date back further. Like, they always say, God, I wish I started this sooner.
Yeah.
Yep.
And there's a reason for
That's
that.
so true. I've never heard anybody say that.
Yeah. I lost 20 kilos, but I wish I would have started on Thursday.
Yeah.
Maybe I should have started Monday.
What's your thought process on like the clients that we've currently got who may have that Christmas period, and then they come into January maybe a little bit too chunky, maybe had enjoyed it a little bit too much.
The BMI is too high.
The BMI is too high.
Yeah, you know, you've enjoyed every aspect of quality street celebrities and heroes, and now you've got your top tier ratings all the way from top to bottom, and now you're feeling a bit like all over the shop because you thought it was going to be a bit better than it was. You're a bit down in the dumps because maybe there's a bit more pouch that you see more than you didn't see before. What's the first steps?
I'm going to go against the grain. I'm going to say step on the scales. Get on the scales and see where you're at. Like, you're not going to be able to sort out being in debt by consistently ignoring your bank balance. You've got to look at where you are right now, and it's not to kind of punish yourself.
It's been working for me.
It's not to punish yourself. Like, it is what it is. Like, it's already done. So find out where you are, and you can actually do something about it.
You have to take that hit of the reconfirmation that you know that you've been not great. But you already know that you've not been great, so it's no surprise when you step on the scales. Oh, I wonder where that 2 kilo came from. Let me just trace back. How many mince pies did you have on Christmas Day? 7 with ice cream.
I can't believe I gained 20 kilos.
So when people say, "Oh, I can't believe I gained 10 kilos," and I'm like, "Oh, so like when you're eating dinner, like how many servings do you have?" "Oh, 4." I'm like, "Oh, you know
And
that."
then...
And then dessert. It's like, oh, I didn't think that would correlate with that. It's like, yeah. But if you step on the scales, okay, that's not step 1. I would 100% agree with that. What's the next one?
Realignment. I think you've established what your weight is, and let's face it, you've got to accept it because it is what it is. It's showing you that you're in debt.
Yeah.
But you may have had targets and you've missed them. Okay, what's next? Let's jump on a call. Let's establish new targets. Let's strip everything back to basics. Let's re-establish getting them steps in. Let's re-establish weighing the food, because let's face it, if you're gaining over Christmas, you're not weighing food. So let's get back to the basics.
Yeah, and on that note, I think, one thing that I've been talking to my clients a lot about was it's really interesting what happens very conveniently when they don't send over food photos is like when they start to gain weight. And I'm just like, oh, okay, that's interesting. You didn't send me food photos on these days. And that's just miraculously when you gain the weight, at the wedding or at the holiday or whatever it is. But I feel like that's a missed opportunity. And I always tell them that this could be an opportunity for us to reflect, regardless of, what happened there. You gain the weight, but, just like athletes are reviewing their film, whether they won the game or not, like, let's take a look at this. How could this be better next time? Because there's going to be a next time. There's going to be next Christmas. There's going to be the next holiday. There's going to be the next wedding. So, just start with the basics, the lowest hanging fruit. And this is like the thing that like just kills me. It's like weighing yourself every morning is like the easiest part of this whole process. And, along with that is that daily check-in that takes like 30 seconds or less. The food photo that literally we're all on our phones all day. We're, just snap a quick picture, send it over to me, regardless of what it is. Like, I'm not going to, I'm not going to bite your head off. I mean, maybe, but I just think that back to basics means like communicate more. The more information you can give us, like the more, we can help you. And it's that, what is it, the Hawthorne effect or whatever? Like if you're taking picture of what you're consuming, chances are you're probably going to make a better decision than if you weren't. If you know that, okay, I'm going to be sending this over. There's something that happens there psychologically. There's that accountability phenomenon that happens. So I think, yeah, just really getting back to even the non-exercise and movement and part of this is just the communication piece. I think is big.
Just like don't prolong it as well. Like, I think like people, they go, if they miss the beat, let's say on Monday, I think it's the 1st, right? Monday the 1st of January, you don't have a good day, and you're like, fuck it, like
2024.
yeah, exactly.
It's always next year. It's
Like,
always next year.
I'll realign
Already.
it. Let's push it back until the 7th. But it's like actually, what most people probably find is like when it comes to the beginning of the year, you're probably not in as bad position as what you think you are. But what you're going to do across this next week is actually where most of the real damage will take place. Like actually, had you had some accountability, stepped on those scales and seen where you're at, on that Monday, like you would have probably been quite surprised. Actually, you know what, I'm a kilo up or I'm a kilo and a half. I thought I'd be way worse than that. But then you let that run out for another week of indulging, like that's when, the kind of the real damage does happen. So just try and, I definitely recommend to just nip it in the bud as quickly as possible.
I think it's looking at like an acceptance piece. Like I think we're all talking here about like the psychological fundamentals rather than actually the nutrition training, happening steps to do. Because I think during that time period, if you had gained a little bit more, or you're prone to diet starts Monday, or you're prone to all or nothing mentality, the usual stuff that people come in with, it's about understanding that there's a level of acceptance and not hiding from yourself. And when you can understand that you did what you did, whether it was good, bad or ugly, they were your choices, and that prolonging it any further or feeding into that ignorance is bliss mindset means that you just don't make progress. What would be the worst case scenario about trying again tomorrow? I tell you what the worst case scenario is about trying again next Monday, is that you use this week to eat what you want, and then you then are in a worse place on Monday, so then you don't start again. So the worst case scenario of stepping on the scales, the worst case scenario of trying again tomorrow, is that you try again tomorrow and it's not a week's time or 2 weeks' time.
Right now.
Yeah.
It's a tomorrow pot.
Yeah.
New year,
Yeah.
new me.
Yeah.
So outside of those variables, let's say, for example, if someone was going to want to get, let's say, for example, if they're in a South Asian household, they're living with their parents, and you wanted to set people up for success for consistency, and now we're talking nutrition, training, lifestyle. What are the key fundamentals, would you say, if someone else is preparing the other food, if they don't have that much control over it, what type of strategy are we using to help people be consistent with nutrition? What's fundamental?
I think the first thing is just to actually talk about it, like with someone. I think a lot of times people go on fat loss journeys, they try to hide it, like it's some secret. I've got a diet, I don't want to tell no one, in case I fail, kind of thing. But tell the person that you're living with, your mum or whoever, that they're probably used to cooking you food, all that jazz, helping you out, and just tell them that what you're actually trying to do. Don't just say, hey, I'm dieting, or I'm not going to eat your food. Tell them, look, I'm dieting, I've gained lots of fat, my BMI is high, and this is difficult, like I'm going to die, kind of thing. And your mum is going to support you, right? There probably will be a little bit of kickback, but I'm sure they're gonna understand it a bit more. But if you just stop eating their food without telling them, they're gonna be like, "Yo, what's going on?"
Yeah,
talk to me.
South Asian households are so funny because, like, growing up, it's just like eat, and then you're fat, and it's like, you're fat, dude. Like, why are you fat? You're getting a little. It's like, you told me to eat this. It's the same thing.
Why are you eating so much?
Yeah, not so much.
It's the same thing with, like, getting married too, right? It's like, growing up, it's like, don't date, focus on your studies, and then you're like 40, and it's like, why aren't you married? It's like, you told me not to. It's just like,
This is so true, isn't it?